Previously on db100, Bulma and Yamcha were killed by the Demon Clan mutant Tambourine, but Goku, Tien, and Krillin survived and defeated the head of the clan, Demon King Piccolo. With special training from Kami, Goku also kept the king's reincarnation Piccolo Jr. in line at the next World Martial Arts Tournament where the hatchling reared his ugly head. Following Goku's wedding to Chi-Chi and years of peacetime, Bulma, Krillin, and Goku reunited with the man's young son on Roshi's island, but their happy gathering was crashed by Goku's brother Raditz. The evil Saiyan marauder from space revealed our hero's alien origins, and in light of Goku's failure to exterminate all native life, the newcomer left an ultimatum: kill 100 humans and present them at Kami House within 1 day, or forfeit the life of his kidnapped son Gohan. Short on time to close the gap in strength, and desperate to save his son, Goku sought out the hyperbolic time chamber with Krillin. Piccolo prepared a different tactic to take Raditz by surprise, and actually killed 100 humans. With the aid of Bulma's capsule technology, he stacked them right on Roshi's beach as requested, distracting the Saiyan while Bulma and Roshi attempted to free the imprisoned Gohan from Raditz's space pod. Raditz recovered from an ambush by Goku, Piccolo, and Krillin, and rushed to his pod to exact revenge on Gohan for Kakarot and the Earthlings' betrayal. Krillin gave chase while Goku dove into the ocean to rescue a wounded Piccolo from drowning and dying, which would end the existences of Kami and Shenron too. For today's question, what if Krillin never died in the original Dragon Ball? Bulma lifts a complicated-looking device to her forehead and wipes away her sweat before tossing the large tool onto a nearby table. The Capsule Corp heiress may have accidentally handed over a couple of extra dino caps to Piccolo, but she still carries a good chunk of field equipment for research with her these days. Pulling up her sleeves and hopping back into the scientific pursuits that filled her head before she discovered boys felt refreshing. For all the boy-crazy boyfriend hunting she'd done, Yamcha seemed more interested in baseball, or whatever midlife lone wolf crisis he'd been wallowing in these past years since the couple died and resurrected. Her entire mobile lab proves useless, however. She's yet to make heads or tails of the smooth, tough hull of Raditz's pod. Her instruments don't even detect any apparent propulsion system, let alone any technological weak points she can exploit to make the ship open to let Gohan out. The only good Roshi had been since his Kamehameha had failed to free Gohan was providing shade, apparently. The old man leans over Bulma while she tinkers and sneaks a look down her top. Bulma sends the pervert to stand guard way over at the mouth of the crater, away from her. Not the time for his antics. Little Gohan is the only useful being within miles. He's actually helpful, and tells Bulma when the pod's internal displays, lights, or sounds react to any of her attempts to get the hatch open, thus allowing the scientists to rule out things that don't work. Pattern recognition, deductive reasoning, and respecting a young woman's body along with her academic credentials, all before kindergarten. Bulma would have to remember to compliment Chi-Chi. Her little boy is going places, though at the moment she wishes this kid had a little bit more of his dad in him. Isn't wrecking strange vehicles just how you say hello when your name is Son? Guess it's up to her. Bulma punches in her latest code in an attempt to control the craft, but Roshi leaps back to her side and warns they're out of time. He senses Raditz coming, and the Saiyan's making a mad dash straight for them, and he's not turning around, so there's no point in laying low or concealing his ki any longer. Roshi leaps to the center of the crater and bulks up to his max power form, the sheer girth of his body expanding enough to knock Bulma's tangle of technology aside. Breaking the pod should be easy at this level. Keeping the kid in one piece may prove the tricky part, but the wise Hermit plays a hunch of his. Roshi looks Gohan in the eye and searches deep within the boy. The master knows Gohan has more power. He gives Gohan a quick crash course in spirit power and ki, along with a visual demonstration, as the swole senior citizen starts summoning energy for a max power Kamehameha. Gohan's power rises as well, but the ascent is nowhere near as clean or controlled as Roshi's. Nor is it anywhere near the level the kid can rise to when enraged. At the moment, he's still just scared. It's fine though. Roshi just needs the boy to raise his spirit enough so that the Kamehameha wave won't kill him when the pod gets blasted away. Gohan's untamed ki swirls within the pod, pressure building and warping the hull from the inside out. Suddenly, it stops. Gohan's power flatlines while Roshi continues to charge the Kamehameha. They needed a new plan. With Gohan unconscious, he'd die from the attack. The kid was doing fine. He didn't run out of energy. Roshi's stymied, but Bulma observes that some kind of gas deployed from inside the pod and knocked Gohan out. She also notices a freshly formed small crack in the edge of the hatch though. The kid managed that much with his aborted outburst. She fishes out her microband and gives it to Roshi. No stranger to operating the discreet device, the overly buff old man shrinks to the size of a raisin, and Bulma slides him into the gap in the pod. Roshi holds his breath, plants his miniature feet on Gohan's torso, and turns to face out the pod's window. Bulma's bosom is magnified across the fisheye glass. Roshi laments that he can only enjoy the view as long as he can hold his breath in this gas. He looks over his shoulder at the snoozing Gohan. Kid didn't know what he was missing. He wipes away his nascent nosebleed and signals for Bulma to clear out, and then the mini Master Roshi launches a max power Kamehameha the width of a pencil at the glass. Despite the diminutive size, the glass shatters and the hatch is blown off the moment it makes contact, leaving Gohan and the rest of the pod relatively unscathed. "Great!" Bulma exclaims. She looks around. Still no sign of Raditz. She finishes recapsulizing her equipment and runs over to scoop up Gohan. She stops short, however, when an electric shock emanates across Gohan's body. The boy rouses, and his tail begins to twitch. Bulma wonders why Roshi hasn't returned to his normal size, and worries she might have stepped on him. She grabs Gohan's groggy form and hurries out of the crater, only to be stopped in her tracks by Raditz. He's about to wipe out Bulma when his scouter beeps. The Saiyan whips around. How? He's shocked Kakarot and those weaklings from the beach could be on top of him already, but he only sees clear horizons. Was this a scouter malfunction? Raditz scratches his head before an invisible force bludgeons him in the temple and sends him careening sideways. Roshi reappears at size, having shocked Gohan into consciousness with a mild burst of his lightning surprise attack while he was miniaturized. He deflates from his muscled physique and swiftly helps Bulma and Gohan out of the crater. Roshi doesn't doubt for a second Raditz will rally from the old man's singular strike. Bulma tosses out her capsule plane and runs for it, while Raditz recovers and rushes to the trio. Roshi spreads his arms wide, making his very person the wall between the Saiyan and the vulnerable younglings. Despite the old man looking to throw down, he's duped by Raditz's speed, and the Saiyan is actually able to get directly behind Roshi. The cocky Saiyan lifts his fist to backhand the geezer, but impressively, the turtle hermit is able to anticipate him and dodge. The Saiyan scouter lets him know Krillin and Goku are about to be on top of him, and he knocks Roshi away with a brutal kick. Again, Roshi's old bones react inherently, and he spins quickly enough to take the hit on his shell instead of himself, which fractures as Roshi's sent flying away. Gohan watches helplessly as Raditz hurts the old man who freed him and cries as he's wrenched from Bulma's arms. Bulma shouts to leave the kid alone, but Raditz dismisses her and shoves her to the ground. Raditz prepares to blast Bulma away, but he's charged by Roshi. The old man's rebounded, and he's swifter without his shell, but he still gets caught by the throat while moving in close to strike the Saiyan. Raditz uses Gohan's whole body as a bludgeon to hammer Roshi across the face, before spinning the boy around by his tail to bash the old man in his already broken ribs. The boy cries and wails through the whole ordeal. Gohan finally stops crying as his rage and power begin to build. His anger explodes, and he throws his entire body into Raditz's torso, now unprotected due to Krillin slashing his armor apart earlier. The hurling headbutt hurts Raditz, though the winded Saiyan only wobbles before he swats his nuclear nephew into the dirt. The toddler's terrifying power drops like a stone. Raditz's scouter ignores the dramatic drop in the toddler's power, preoccupied tracking his brother's approach. Blind to how vulnerable Gohan suddenly become again, Raditz readies a powerful ki attack in retaliation, but just before the blast can erase little Gohan, Krillin swoops in and whips the boy out of the path of destruction. Raditz is angry at being denied his kill, and zeroes in on Krillin, who uses yet another solar flare to stun him. By now, the Saiyan's been blinded multiple times, so Raditz only pretends to be blind this time, when in fact he shut his eyes tightly to avoid the flare. As Krillin takes the few moments he believes he's bought himself to prepare a deadly Destructo Disc, Raditz opens his eyes and immediately throws a wall of energy at the group of Earthlings from point-blank range. Krillin scrambles and abandons his Destructo Disc before frantically firing off a Kamehameha, which has the mass to meet and hopefully hold off Raditz's blast. The attack threatens to overwhelm the monk. Roshi adds his own Kamehameha to Krillin's, but the old man is too injured to make a dent. Krillin shouts for him to get the others safe. Roshi understands and grabs Bulma and Gohan, rushing them away from the path of Raditz's onslaught. Krillin's able to keep it up until they're clear, but his Kamehameha is eventually swallowed, and he's killed by Raditz's attack. Mere moments later, Goku arrives with Piccolo, who he retrieved from the ocean and is now slowly recovering from his injuries. Furious over losing Krillin, Goku keeps enough composure to toss a senzu bean to his tired master. It's round 2, and Raditz will get no mercy from his belligerent and bereaved brother. Goku and Roshi try to stall Raditz while Piccolo charges a special beam cannon. Goku gets Raditz in a full Nelson, but Raditz is able to fly upwards and dodge the fatal shot. Roshi leaps to kick Raditz back down into the path of the beam, only for Raditz to whip around and kick Roshi and his brother towards Piccolo's beam instead. Turtle Master and Student are barely able to dodge the beam, with Roshi getting grazed and hurt when his shoulder is impaled by the attack. Tien and Chiaotzu arrive, magically ferried to the battlefield by Fortune Teller Baba. Tien relieves the injured Roshi as a combatant, while Piccolo must muster another miracle and charges up to conjure an encore of his finishing attack. Roshi grimaces that his sister checks her answering machine after all. He'd telephoned hours ago, asking her to track down their Crane School allies. She couldn't have shown up a moment sooner, before he got skewered by the beam cannon? Baba blames the triclops. He's not an easy guy to locate, and the little one's magic makes things that much harder. The fortune teller slaps her brother and tells him to hold still and stop fussing. She uses some of Bandages the Mummy's enchanted wraps to dress Roshi's wounds, as well as some rudimentary rejuvenation spells to speed the old hermit's healing. Roshi is reluctant to let this magic mumbo-jumbo flow through his martial artist body, but Baba rolls her eyes and claims she's doing just enough to get him back on his feet. Roshi acquiesces and closes his eyes, ready to recuperate, but the healing glow of his sister abruptly stops. He opens his eyes to see Baba billing Bulma for her services. Let's see, magically locating and transporting Tien and Chiaotzu, enchanted bandages, healing spell. Alright, there it is, all itemized. Baba will accept either cash or credit. Goku and Tien blitz the invader in a tangle of limbs, hair, tail, and even teeth. Goku grapples with Raditz and pins him in place, clutching onto his brother's body. Tien levitates off the Saiyan siblings and hangs above the fray, blocking Raditz's upward path of escape. Chiaotzu and a rundown Roshi further restrain Raditz using a combination of telekinesis and the lightning attack. Even Baba floats up on her crystal ball, casting her magic to arrest Raditz's motion however she can, however much that'll help. Piccolo fires his drilling death beam, and Roshi shouts for Goku to get clear. They'll hold his brother for the moment just before the beam hits. Goku gets the message and leaps away from the evil Saiyan, but Raditz, mostly immobile from the electric shock, manages to hook Goku's ankle with his tail and fling him, his younger brother, into the path of the beam cannon. Raditz forms two orbs in his hands, still hampered by the Hermit's lightning. Roshi anticipates that each of the two balls of ki Raditz wields are intended for Chiaotzu and himself, but the elderly expert reads the Saiyan signals wrong and can't counter quickly enough when Raditz ignores the Hermit completely, inflicts both blasts at his sister Baba and the tiny pale psychic. Facing not one but two advancing orbs of annihilation, Chiaotzu has no choice but to abandon his telekinetic hold and fling himself out of harm's way. Roshi shouts in vain for Baba to move, but she's not fast enough, and the fortune teller falls. Raditz smirks, as breaking Chiaotzu's concentration, and whatever hold that witch had on his person, gives him enough freedom to shake off Roshi's lightning like it's simple static. But he's not out of danger yet. He's got to move fast, or he'll die. The Saiyan's battle-attuned senses process his surroundings at super speed. The fast-advancing special beam cannon spears Goku in the back, and slows for only a tick as it drills through Goku's flesh. Raditz ascends confidently upwards out of the path, but he's smacked back down and into the beam by a tri-beam from Tien. The two attacks explode upon contact, and send the bodies of the Saiyan brothers hurtling to the ground. The battle may be won, but their casualties were considerable. Tien and Roshi resolve to wish Goku and Krillin back to life as soon as they're able, but it seems that their world's deity may have other plans. Piccolo is livid that he's finally achieved his goal of killing Goku, only to immediately learn that Kami and the Earthlings plan to undo it using a wish from the Dragon Balls. From the ground, the dead Saiyan's communication device picks up the two halves arguing and informs their enemies that the Earth has a set of magic wish-granting orbs. Vegeta informs the humans of his inevitable arrival and tells them to be prepared to surrender these Dragon Balls or die. Bulma cradles Gohan, and Kami stammers out that there's a change of plans now that he's aware there's two additional enemies heading towards their planet. Piccolo cuts off his other half before he can speak another word and approaches the scouter. He asks the Saiyans how long it'll be before they arrive. Once they receive the answer, Piccolo singes the ground next to the scouter, knocking it into Bulma's hands. She turns it off. Only then does Kami divulge his grand plan. He won't just be escorting Goku to the other world for rest until his soul is revived. He'll also arrange for him to receive special training from the deities in Otherworld to prepare for the Saiyans. He advises the others wait before wishing Goku back to life so that he can have the time to improve in the other dimension, outside of the mortal realm. Kami closes his eyes and attempts to get in telepathic contact with the needed parties. However, when he uses his powers, he falters and is forced to take a knee. Tien rushes to his side, but Roshi realizes what's wrong. Piccolo was hurt and used up most of his energy in the battle. Kami and Piccolo are both fading away. Piccolo, surrounded by enemies and on the brink, dives on top of Kami, grabbing the Guardian and trying to forcibly integrate his other half back into himself. He'll survive the loss of stamina that battling Raditz put him through, gain his true power, and turn those Dragon Balls to useless stone, making sure that Goku stays dead. Tien moves in to counter Piccolo, before Roshi stops him, reminding the three-eyed assassin that any further damage to Piccolo also harms Kami. The two green opponents are going to need to work this out amongst themselves. Kami dodges Piccolo and tries to stay one step ahead, but the demon is too fast. What the Guardian needs is a safe place to rest and regain some strength before Piccolo can overwhelm him. Kami curses his own weakness, his age, and that his own demons have driven him to such sacrilege. In a desperate bid, the god of Earth overshadows the dead body of Raditz, in the same manner he once did for the human hero at the World Martial Arts Tournament. Baba jolts awake, as if stirred to consciousness by Kami's extreme act. Safe in Raditz's powerful shell, Kami is better able to resist Piccolo's advances. But Baba's aghast at the Guardian's use of necromancy. Doesn't he realize how risky it is to possess a body whose original soul has already vacated? Roshi explains that Kami is simply trying to survive. The Guardians attempt to bring Goku to Otherworld exhausted any stamina he had left, and that's when Piccolo pounced. Kami camps out in Raditz's husk and stares down Piccolo, before the determined demon and grave-robbing Guardian launch at one another. Fortune teller Baba berates Kami from the sidelines, as the distracted deity tanks a few more hits from Piccolo. The two lunkheads nearly dying wasn't the result of Piccolo overexerting himself in the fight, it's the result of Kami being underqualified to travel to Yema's place. He'd been trying to get to the check-in station with Goku, hadn't he? Kami blocks a punch from Piccolo and nods to the fortune teller, and Piccolo lands a punch to the old man's smooth Saiyan face. But so long as the jaw absorbing the blow was that dead Saiyan's, the fight wasn't over yet. Baba explains that the problem is the way 99% of the universe makes that same trip is by dying. So when Kami lazily directed his soul, and the recently deceased soul of Goku, toward Yema without the proper nuance and experience that a professional like herself would practice, Kami's soul quite rightly assumed it was time to expire from the land of the living if a date with King Yema was apparently what Kami wished. Baba reminds the dying god in the dead alien husk that she's the necromancer around these parts, and it's an art, not a science. He'd best leave fixing this mess to the pros. Baba asks Tien if he'd be so kind as to make some room for her. The triclops tackles Piccolo away from Kami, as Baba extracts the Guardian's essence from Raditz and properly anchors the Guardian's soul to his correct body in the living realm. Piccolo shoves off Tien with a mouth blast. Though mercifully, it seems Ma Jr.'s given up on the forced reabsorption, as he no longer needs Kami's merged essence to survive. Baba's magical diagnosis and remedy return both mean green rivals to a relatively stable state of stamina and power. Piccolo estimates the two have recovered enough that they can continue to survive separately. Tien, Roshi, Chiaotzu, Baba, and Kami all stare down the glaring Piccolo before he flies off. Piccolo does not get the chance to steal Gohan. Piccolo does not get the chance to steal Gohan, or take anything else other than his wounded pride from this battle. Kami confesses that his gambit was almost a mistake. Raditz's body was so grievously injured that being inside of it wasn't a healing experience. It was still draining. He barely managed to stand up and flare his energy, let alone fight. He advises the humans prepare, and once the Guardian catches his breath, Baba tells Kami he owes her. She'll ferry Goku to Yema for free, but if he wants to go along to bargain with the ogre, he's got to pay. Kami agrees and solicits his human worshippers, namely Bulma and Roshi, for monetary tributes. Bulma balks that she didn't get a personalized chauffeur to the pearly gates when she died, or any judge named Yema for that matter. Her and Yamcha didn't really remember much of anything about what it was like to be dead once they were revived. At least she didn't. The two of them make a habit of avoiding the touchy subject. Turns out dwelling on death and your own mortality is still a bummer, even when you have experience magically resurrecting. Baba liberates Bulma of any illusions she may have about her importance. A master of divination like herself only sneezes in the direction of powerful souls, who might actually figure into the big picture. Most souls pass from the mortal plane as easily as farts from a buttocks. Bulma, a billionaire bimbo, and her baseball player boyfriend probably didn't even keep their bodies when they passed on, so it's no wonder they don't have their memories of that time. But Goku is a different story. The slain Saiyan was a bona fide savior of their world multiple times over, so his soul will likely retain both his body and his memories in the afterlife. As Roshi watches his sister and Kami vanish with the bloodied corpse of Goku, the Hermit bites back his anger. For once, he wasn't thinking of pretty young bodies, but the bodies of his fallen students. The old man volunteers for the arduous task of breaking the bad news to Chi-Chi that her husband has been killed. Bulma can't imagine losing a husband. She doesn't even have a husband. She tells the two former martial arts champions, Tien and Roshi, that she'll handle tracking down Yamcha. They need all hands on deck against those two new inbound Saiyans. Bulma asks if the two men can handle Gohan, and Roshi nods, seeing her off. He promises Gohan will get what he needs, and calls for his baby Gamera in a pitched whisper. He's careful not to wake the sleeping monkey-tailed hybrid as they head out. The cold sea air whips against Roshi's cuts and bruises as he hovers toward home on the spinning shell of the baby Gamera. Tien flies alongside him while Chiaotzu brings up the rear, cradling a snoozing Gohan with his telekinesis. Resisting Raditz took a lot out of them all. The Crane student vows to surpass his limits and will do whatever it takes. The master praises Tien's drive to meet the upcoming challenge and tantalizes the three-eyed warrior with a crucial test. A trial so difficult, not even Roshi himself is fit to overcome it, but the old hermit insists this bold path will suit Tien. Tien is ready to take on the challenge. What does he need to do? Roshi advises Tien to use what remains of Kame House, clean up, rest, and eat. Then take Gohan away, somewhere remote where he won't be disturbed. Then Tien is to train the youngster in martial arts with the year they have. The master will handle breaking the news to Chi-Chi. She may shoot the messenger, in this case Roshi, but Gohan's latent power is something they can't ignore. But why make Tien his trainer, the Triclops wonders? This was Goku's son, and Goku practices the Kame style. Wouldn't it make more sense for Master Roshi, with his centuries of wisdom and experience, to give Gohan the best teaching possible? No. The turtle style of martial arts is all about balance and conservation of energy, so one can gradually transform their performance. What Gohan needs is to learn to unleash his pre-existing power, not simply build it up from basics, as is the challenge for most young pupils. Perhaps even more so than his father. Every aspect of Roshi's training is designed to condition the pupil to break through the natural limits of the human body and tap into the strength of their spirit. Gohan already possesses immense stores of raw, incredible energy and strength. His unique Earthling Saiyan heritage has rocketed him past any limits Roshi knows how to break. He can give the boy guidance, sure, but he couldn't just send him off delivering milk like the master had with Goku and the boy's namesake great-grandfather. Waiting for his prowess for fighting to bloom more naturally, or allowing the boy a safe haven with his mother for the next year simply wasn't an option, not when the entire Earth was on the line. The Crane style, however, with its emphasis on precision strikes and dominating an opponent in a blitz of blasts and blows, would forge the gentle, untrained boy into harnessing his hidden power. Roshi convinces Tien to at least watch the boy for as long as they remain on the island. The old man bathes and changes into his black suit and hat. He also drops the hint to Tien that if nothing else, Gohan should learn how to fly. Raditz could, and the other Saiyans are no doubt capable of the same. Roshi hops in his hovercar and sets out for Ox and Chi-Chi at Mount Paozu with a heavy heart. Yamcha is drunk and slouched over a table in a bar. Just a few hours ago, he was drunk on the sweet elixir of victory as he swept through the preliminary rounds of the latest World Martial Arts Tournament. The baseball-playing bandit had called his shot. Goku might be settled down with a wife, and Krillin may be Korin's favorite pupil, but this year, Yamcha was going to be #1 under the heavens. At the very least, competing without the rest of his friends on the roster means he'd break his quarterfinals curse. Years of preparation every time, in each competition he comes up short. Having to face his own master in his first tournament, getting his leg shattered in the ring and killed at his second. Yamcha toasts to his good luck and chugs another glass. He was lucky. Fate and his friends saw fit to resurrect him after his death. And on what was supposed to be Yamcha's big comeback, lucky #3 for his tournament outings, God himself came down from on high just to kick him in the nuts. Publicly. Suffice to say, he was due for a hit. But it had gone from bad to worse this year. He hadn't included Bulma in his plans, mostly to keep her away from the place where she'd been killed. Bad memories. But seeing as he'd been handed his most humiliating defeat yet, Yamcha is grateful no one from the gang was around to witness it. The already snookered southpaw downs another drink and dwells on today's latest defeat that sent him spiraling. He'd been on fire. Everything was going so well. Cutting through opponent after opponent, the crowd of competitors watched the bandit's clinic with varying delight and disbelief at his display. These wannabe preliminary entrants can't lay a finger on Yamcha. Yamcha ducks a punch from his preliminary opponent, a guy about Goku's age. Yamcha wagers this guy doesn't have Goku's skills though, and expertly baits the big guy with a feint, leading him right where he wants him before catching him by surprise with a kick that launches him off his feet. That guy wasn't getting up. No need to count. Yamcha spins around and mugs for the cameras and the still stunned spectators who look at him in awe. He howls with excitement and regrets not inviting Bulma. She could have seen him in his element. The hunky fighter hams it up, and his complacency earns him a kick to the gut. Turns out the no-name dojo his opponent hailed from taught one thing correctly: grit. His opponent stubbornly rallied to his feet during Yamcha's premature celebration, and repaid the bandit's kick with an explosive kick of his own. Ring out, no counting. Yamcha stunned. The bandit's bruised ego knew losing was a possibility, but losing in the qualifiers? That really stung. And from a ring out, what a stupid way to blow it. He couldn't let his comeback end before it began. Yamcha protests his elimination by ring out. On what grounds? The officials ask. Stammering, Yamcha performs a clumsy but ultimately successful execution of the sky dancing technique and insists to the officials that he can fly. There's no way someone who could fly could actually be knocked out of the ring. The organizers do not doubt his use and mastery of ki, or even that the man is levitating. levitating before their very eyes, but they still insist that he was knocked out of the ring nonetheless. Yamcha's desperate display and defeat further reinforces his opponent's notion that this kind of fighting is nothing more than amateur-level smoke and mirrors, used primarily by cowards and liars. He beat Yamcha with good old-fashioned punches and kicks, not cheap tricks. Skills that'll someday make him the champ. Chumps like this Yamcha were supposed to get washed out in the preliminaries. The announcer is appalled by Yamcha's antics, citing the bandit's pedigree, along with the other Turtle and Crane students. The group's reputation for spectacle has made them a huge draw. The organizers have even dubbed them the Zenny Fighters, or Z Fighters. Yamcha perks up at the mention of money. Maybe he and Goku could get contracts and fat paychecks and endorsement deals like he does in his baseball career. He'd taken on an agent/promoter/PR rep, Kono Miyaki, and if he could get any Zenny out of today's debacle, she might not totally throttle him. However, the organizers scoff at Goku's name. He cost the organization Zenny. They had to reconstruct the entire arena after Goku's last finals bout against that Jr. Yamcha chuckles to himself at his bar table, reminiscing. That was about the only thing he'd done well at this tournament. At least he hadn't blown up an arena. Plus, the guy who beat him wasn't just a random contestant. Mark Edmonds, who went on to win the entire competition, celebrates with his master in the same bar. Yamcha moodily concedes to himself that his cocky attitude is to blame, not anything this Mark did. He raises a wobbly glass to Mark from across the bar. The winning fighter curtly acknowledges the gesture, raising a bushy brow back at the drunk he defeated. First, the guy tries to cheat him out of his tournament spot, and now the fraud wants to be friends. What gives? Yamcha's misguided mea culpa is mercifully cut short as a raging redhead stomps into the bar, zeroes in on Yamcha, and slaps the glass right out of his hand. Then slaps the back of his head. Kono Miyaki, or Miss Pizza, as she'll eventually be known, chews him out for losing. Worse, for losing so early that no one from the public even got to see him. Miyaki ignores Yamcha's blubbering excuses. She didn't need him to ham it up in the preliminaries. She didn't even need him to win. Hell, she only recruited him after attending the previous 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament and learning it wasn't exactly lucrative to rep fighters whose matches end in a panic and the total destruction of the arena. She only recruited Yamcha because she figured she could make a little money off of him. Plus, that hero guy turned her down. He put on a humorous and memorable display in the ring. She cuts Yamcha off as he drunkenly accuses his old nemesis, Hero, of secretly being God, purposely stopping him from advancing in the years-old, long-decided tournament. She'd heard the stories before and still stuck with the bandit. She even landed the loser a baseball career so they wouldn't be totally broke when the World Martial Arts Tournament switched their interval from 3 years to 5 years. Following this costly and foolish defeat, though, Kono writes Yamcha off. The bandit just didn't perform well under pressure. At this point, she'd settle for repping any guy who could just plain perform. They wouldn't even need to fight well. Kono Miyaki tears up Yamcha's contract and stomps out of the bar as Tao Pai Pai enters. The assassin bursts into the tournament grounds, hoping to find Tien or Goku to scratch his occasional itch to inflict pain and revenge. It seems the two cowards didn't show this year. Mark's master makes a rude remark about Tao Pai Pai's ponytail, and the mercurial mercenary kills the bozo from the low-class dojo almost immediately with an expert strike of his tongue. Yamcha saw the strike coming and moved to confront Tao, but the boozed-up bandit tripped over his own legs and the table in front of him before he could stop the demise of the Satan Dojo Master. Edmonds unleashes on Tao, but the assassin shrugs off all of Mark's attacks and uses the oaf's weight against him to flip him onto the ground. Tao lets the young man know that his master insulted him, so he died, but Mark has just challenged him, and that means he won't just die, he'll suffer. Mark immediately backs off and grovels. Tao warns Mark that he never wants to see his face there again. The fool has no business playing at the martial arts. After having lost the mother of his child, and now his master, the young champ leans on his strong survival instincts and vows to change his entire persona and make it a habit to pick his battles more wisely. He doesn't need to beat every strong opponent. Simply surviving against some opponents was enough. No matter the cost to his dignity, his daughter needs a father who will always be around to protect her. Shortly thereafter, he meets Kono Miyaki, and with some patented Miss Pizza PR magic, Mark rechristens himself Hercule Satan, his young daughter following suit and adopting the name Videl Satan. Yamcha props himself up and feels worse than ever. He failed as a fighter in the ring, and failed again, letting Tao commit murder and escape. His phone rings and he ignores a message from Bulma. He wasn't in the mood for another argument. He sinks back into a booth near the bar, and fills the void in his heart with another drink. The alcohol assuages his guilt, and he promises himself he'll be there, backing Goku, like a shadow, which brings the bandit some slurred solace. He drifts off into a self-pitying sleep. Piccolo growls as yet another mile of sand whizzes beneath his flight path. He'd tasked Pilaf with expanding his cloaking technology so Piccolo could gain some privacy from the frequent psychic peeks into his private life Kami was so prone to taking lately. Now, however, having palmed the 4-star Dragon Ball from Gohan's hat at the battlefield, Piccolo needs to get off the radar. Literally, figuratively, and urgently. Unfortunately, it seems the little goblin might have followed his instructions too well. Secreting away this Dragon Ball behind Pilaf's technological veil was his only insurance against those humans wishing to revive Goku. Kami had left the Earth to see that Goku's spirit receive some special training in Otherworld. He'd finally achieved the revenge his father had birthed him for, and the only thing standing between Piccolo and his destiny of subjugating the worthless humans was a couple of Saiyans. He'd killed 2 already. How hard could 2 more be? He combs memories inherited from his father, but amongst all the malice and superstition of Earthlings, their magic and their martial arts, no contingency plans for aliens. He lands on a sand dune, glancing at the endless sun-baked horizon. Piccolo swears he's just been going in circles. This is exactly where he left Pilaf, right? He throws his arms out, flaring his power and unleashing a shockwave. A shrill voice echoes through the desert, hurting his highly attuned ears. Pilaf's amplified voice chastises Piccolo to relax and holster the energy beams. The castle he made won't do him any good if he blows it up before entering. A large plot of sand rattles and falls out of sight as a camouflaged castle rises from below. Piccolo massages his sensitive ears and drops into an open turret. This castle may have been able to hide their life force from Piccolo as he searched the desert, but the Pilaf gang was so pitiful a damp napkin could probably cloak their power just as well. His father's fantasies of conquering the Earth all alone may be outdated in this new era of interstellar invaders, but he's got one last trick from the old man that will make sure Piccolo's way, the Demon Clan's desires, will reign supreme when the dust settles between Kami's humans and these savage spaceborne Saiyans. Conveniently enough, it'll require him to expend almost all of his power. A suitable stress test for Pilaf's energy cloak. Piccolo uses his magic materialization ability to recreate the most rudimentary of scouters, and commands one of the gang members to stand outside the compound. Mai draws the short straw and heads out to the hot castle exterior while Shu and Pilaf snicker from the comfort of the air conditioning inside the castle. But they too are nearly cooked when Piccolo summons his absolute maximum might, creating a small lightning storm within the castle walls. He strains his body to his peak of power, and then eases. He removes his turban, braces himself, and slowly, almost gratuitously slowly, coughs up a large, slime-covered egg. Shu and Pilaf cough up a few eggs of their own, along with the bacon they had for breakfast, while witnessing the grotesque, gestating egg emerge from Piccolo's gullet. Piccolo feels woozy. Becoming a parent takes a lot out of you. Who knew? He staggers. Trying to grow his ranks and reproduce so soon after nearly dying to Raditz may not have been his wisest choice. The green being shouts for the woman to come inside, and Mai reports that her instruments detected no changes in power. No energy, no heat, nothing at all. Piccolo smiles approvingly before he collapses to the ground unconscious, dropping the 4-star ball he swiped from the folds of his cloak. Pilaf snatches up the orb immediately, greedily, while Mai also reports a strange black storm cloud approaching their location. Pilaf remains wary of Piccolo's presence, but takes him along as he navigates the impressive flying cloaked castle out of the path of the black cloudy mist that descends over the desert. A good distance out, with the desert sun past its zenith, Piccolo is still unconscious, while the gang covet the 4-star ball. Unless Piccolo has a nest somewhere on the map he wants to drop this egg. As far as Pilaf's concerned, their only destination was the remaining 6 Dragon Balls, and then, next stop, world domination. An approaching biplane twists erratically and makes a mad dive straight for Pilaf's floating craft. Was their cloak still activated? Could the pilot not see them? No, we should be clear as day to them, Mai confirms. But the plane and its kamikaze pilot plow forward and impact the hull. The breach blows out Piccolo's limp body, the 4-star ball, and nearly drags out Pilaf to his doom too. Miraculously, the egg Piccolo left behind tumbles from its perch and lodges itself in the hole, creating a seal to save Pilaf's life. Mai and Shu are slipping closer and closer to falling out of another fresh tear in the hole, before the egg plops into Pilaf's lap and rolls toward a button, which triggers an emergency seal. The serendipitously spat-out shell suffers a crack in the process, though, but Pilaf promises he'll personally repay the young unborn yolk for this rescue. He delicately treats the damaged shell, speaking softly to the soul inside, as though it were his own offspring. This egg was lucky, he declares. It looked out for them. Tien floats in the sky, above the ocean near Roshi's island. Gohan bobs up and down on the flying nimbus beside him. Tien explains the finer points of the sky dancing technique, how to harness your inner ki, and how a person can use that to float or propel oneself. Chiaotzu is on the shore, using his telekinesis to repair what can be salvaged of the damaged Kame house from Raditz knocking Krillin and then Goku through it. He also diverts his telekinesis to lift the occasional dead body from the waves whenever the tide brings one closer. At least he knew how many he'd have to collect. Save him the trouble of counting. Tien scowls as Yajirobe's arriving hover car and heavy metal music further distract Gohan from his teachings. Yajirobe yells that he's got a message from Kami, but rushes into Kame house first to use the bathroom. Tien returns his attention to Gohan, who is still floating on his cloud. Maybe the boy needs to get his feet wet for the lesson to really sink in. Nimbus is sent away. Gohan struggles to concentrate though and drops into the water, thrashing, then sinking. Tien dives in after him, and unbeknownst to them, he and Gohan avoid the descending black haze that passes. As the black mist wafts across the island, Yajirobe exits the bathroom with a hand clasped over his mouth to avoid the stench he leaves in his wake. He then buries his head in Roshi's refrigerator, helping himself to the food and also unwittingly sparing himself the mist's effects as it seeps and spreads through the rest of the house. Underwater, Tien uses his third eye to form a psychic connection with Gohan. He speaks to him telepathically and calms the boy long enough for them to swim safely to the surface. They come up to find a rabid Chiaotzu attacking Yajirobe. Caught off guard, the three-eyed warrior is sent flying, and the murderous Chiaotzu uses his telekinesis to force Gohan back underwater. Trapped, his latent powers awaken. Gohan erupts from the sea, blasting Chiaotzu unconscious. The little crane student's body skips to the shore before levitating above the beach as if it's suspended by strings. Chiaotzu's fanged form advances towards the flustered Yajirobe in listless hops. The fearful samurai isn't about to let this thing go berserk on him again. He unsheaths his sword and swings swift and true at the glassy-eyed Chiaotzu. Tien reappears at the last moment to save his rabid friend from being cut in two. But despite his deft defending, Yajirobe's sword is strong enough to slice off Tien's forearm. He screams and bleeds. Yajirobe yelps and insists that Korin's got senzu beans that can help with that, and finally gets around to mentioning Kami's request that the Earth's fighters assemble at the lookout. Tien's blood-curdling yell in the near brush with death caused Chiaotzu to reawaken in a semi-zombified state, but he's not feral like he was a moment ago. Wordlessly, the pale red-cheek fighter lifts Tien, Yajirobe, and Tien's severed forearm telekinetically. Tien reaches down with his intact arm and scoops up the unconscious Gohan before Chiaotzu ferries them off to, presumably, Korin's. A long line of flaming blue and white orbs extends from the check-in station. One individual stands out. Krillin, an actual full-blooded human, with arms, legs, and everything. No hair and no nose, but at least dying hadn't turned him into a ball of fire. More incoming souls dot the growing line when another person with a body appears. This one even larger, with a nose and long hair to spare. Raditz seems rather disoriented to find himself in the afterlife. He pays no mind to the knee-high blue flame balls licking at his legs, and doesn't even realize they are disembodied souls as he wades through them towards the one thing that looks familiar. Kakarot's bald friend Krillin. Raditz, calm and patient man that he is, rushes Krillin from behind, and their quick but intense skirmish spills into the check-in station, causing chaos right at Yama's feet. Some quick reactions from Krillin prevent a large blast of Raditz's from taking out half the roof and injuring the worker Oni, but in trying to keep everyone else safe, the distracted monk is hit head-on and struggles to remain fighting. Thankfully, Yama uses the handful of moments Krillin's heroism buys to shuffle through the mess and locate Raditz's paperwork. Yama stamps it and sends the Saiyan to hell before more harm can come to Krillin or Yama's workplace. Goku wanders in well after his brother's been dealt with, sporting a fresh halo, and locates Krillin. Based on Goku and Chi-Chi's past experience with Anin and the Soul Furnace, he was expecting something else from the afterlife. Maybe things are different when you're actually dead, and not alive and just visiting like he and his bride had been. Krillin says he's surprised too. The rest of their friends that have been dead and wished back to life were all killed by King Piccolo. Daimao was leader of the demon clan, so the souls he slays go to a purgatory. He asked Yamcha and Puar what they were called once. Not much, just blackness and agony. None of them ever described anything like the check-in station or Enma. If Goku had known he'd be waiting in a line, he'd have brought a snack. One of the ogres tells them that most people who die don't get to keep their bodies, and they end up like the formless flaming souls all around them during their time in the afterlife. Most souls don't remember much more than the flames licking their forms as penance for their life's sins. The only reason Krillin and Goku have bodies and are even having this experience is because they must have died for some noble purpose, or in a conflict of cosmic consequence. The ogre congratulates the turtle students, as whatever affairs they were involved in had consequences that stretched beyond merely the earth. This is the first time he's met any dead soul deemed significant enough to merit Enma's attention with their their own personal body still intact, and 2 at once no less. Krillin's honored to be in such rare company, but he questions the wisdom of also letting someone like Raditz retain his body. How strong and terrible that Saiyan was, wouldn't it be simpler to just poof him into one of these blue flames too? A booming voice beckons them forward and answers the question. Yema, the judge of the dead, explains that mortals are imperfect. There are everyday sinners, and then there are truly evil beings. The exceptionally evil need their bodies and minds intact to truly taste the consequences of their actions. Only after receiving proper punishment and repenting for their reckless ways can their souls be shuffled through the next cycle for reincarnation. He thanks Krillin for his concern and his help wrangling Raditz earlier, but he boasts that he sent devils far worse than Goku's brother to hell. Yema cuts his shop talk as a third being, Kami, walks up. He's now familiar with Son Goku and Krillin of Earth, both of whom died nobly defending their world from that conquering Saiyan Raditz. Though when he spots a Namekian with a body approaching him, he thumbs through his book but can't immediately find a name. Kami's not dead, he shuts up at Yema. He won't be on any lists. Honestly, first he gets shuffled away from the Earth's check-in line as though he were some kind of alien, then these ogres have the nerve to shuffle him about as though he were one of the anonymous dead. Now the great King Yema can't even recognize him as a godly entity? The guardian of Earth? Yema doesn't appreciate Kami's sass, and his yelling emphasizes just how lucky the guardian is he isn't dead, and facing Yema's judgment right about now. Thankfully, Goku's choice compliments and dopey desire to have a spar with Yema ease the judge's temper, and he ultimately grants Kami's request to send Goku down Snake Way to train with King Kai. Kami sighs with relief and wishes Goku luck before heading for the exit. Best to leave now before he does anything else to upset Yema. The judge of the dead clears his throat loudly, and Kami freezes. What's got the giant offended this time? Just the one? Asks Yema. One what? Kami spots Yema's massive palm blocking Krillin's path, whereas Goku stands waiting on the edge of Snake Way. Goku looks crestfallen when he realizes Krillin can't join him, and the bald monk sighs, resigned to his fate. He was pious enough to keep his body, he supposes, just not heroic enough to merit this special training from King Kai. Goku nags and needles King Yema to please let Krillin join too. Please, come on. The Judge of Souls states that Krillin is quite the exceptional soul in his book, but his book only tells him who goes up or down in the afterlife. According to Otherworld's rules, only Krillin's guardian can request the dead monk receive specialized treatment from a higher deity like King Kai. Hint, hint, he says, stroking his beard and staring expectantly at Kami. The old guardian gets the gist and stammers out the same formal request for Krillin's soul as he did for Goku. Yema grants it, and the boys depart, with Kami wishing them both luck and telling them to meet back here in a year's time, when the Dragon Balls will wish them back to the mortal coil. Yema impresses to Kami that he was simply having some fun earlier, but the judge knows exactly who the guardian is. A cheat. Most mortal beings have to overcome their baser evils and trust their free wills to make moral decisions during life. Instead, Kami hopscotched over all of that personal struggle by separating his evil into an entirely different demonic entity. And for what? A job as guardian of the Earth? It says in his file that he's already tried to unload the job once onto Goku, but the Saiyan refused it. As guardian of the Earth, Kami should be overseeing the growth of his whole world and improving the mortal level of the entire planet. Yema questions the Guardian's conviction and scolds him for overlooking the potential of charges like Krillin in favor of putting everything on Goku, a being not even of the planet he's fostering. You'd think a Guardian of Earth would spend more time investing in the Earthlings. Kami bows as respectfully as possible and backs out of Yema's station with his tail between his legs to reconvene with Baba. The Guardian's relieved to be out of Yema's crosshairs, but Baba thinks Kami should count himself lucky Yema didn't seem to notice his possession of Raditz's body in the midst of all the other commotion. Dark rituals like that are usually strictly penalized among deities. Kami would crumble at those consequences if Yema's stern talking to stings this much. Kami admits the Judge of the Dead has given him much to consider. He has been overly reliant on Goku, and had overlooked the potential of Krillin receiving King Kai's tutelage as well. Kami plans to assess the Earth's remaining fighters once they've returned. Perhaps one of them may be capable of handling the extensive training he'd previously reserved for Goku alone all those years ago. He even asked Baba if any of her undead fighters would be willing to join the effort against the Saiyans, but the fortune teller chastises him. Again, the brash guardian flouts the natural order. Baba's undead fighters, as their name implies, are undead, and thus strictly for exhibition matches. Sure, they can fight, but they're still her otherworldly martial artists mainly. Mortal matters, like planetary survival, fall firmly on the plate of the living Earthlings and their Kami. She doubts Kami could afford to book her full roster anyway, and if the god needs fighters to try her lazy brother. Baba complains she needs a bath after Goku's brother blasted her into the mud. The two fade from Otherworld. Kami will reconvene with the witch in 1 year to retrieve Goku and Krillin. After getting over the initial shock that if they fall off the million-mile path before them, they'll go straight to hell, Goku and Krillin get bored simply strolling. Krillin quips that they'll start their training on the way to King Kai's. They'll make it a race, just like old times when they were kids training with Master Roshi. Goku thinks back happily to their days on the Hermit's Island and thrusts out a thumbs up, agreeing to his friend's challenge, only to find the cheeky Krillin has already sped off. Goku spots him laughing up ahead and dashes after him. The turtle students push each other's pace for miles and miles, and what must be days or weeks, until Goku calls for a timeout, claiming he feels weak. Krillin's merely winded, and maybe a bit sore, so wonders what's wrong with Goku. The Saiyan says he thinks he's hungry, but Krillin retorts he's not even sure they can be hungry. They might not even have stomachs. Krillin attempts to encourage his famished friend, recalling how Goku helped him beat Bacterian. His odorous attacks were nullified against Krillin's noseless face. The stench was all in the little fighter's mind. Goku's probably just making himself hungry because he's thinking about food. At Krillin's suggestion, the two pause to center themselves for a moment of meditation. Krillin was always better at that when they were kids. Goku closes his eyes and concentrates intensely, feeling his energy, getting in touch with his spirit's new form in this otherworld body, attempting to dismiss his hunger as an illusion of the mind. The silent meditation is broken abruptly when Goku's midsection growls loudly. Goku opens his eyes and proclaims, "Nah, I'm still pretty hungry." Krillin mock faints. Goku smells something and suddenly perks up, asking if Krillin smells it too. This time it's Krillin's turn to remind his friend about his lack of a nose. "Lunch!" Goku exclaims, dashing deeper down Snake Way. They follow the smell to Princess Snake's castle. The princess leads them to believe the castle is a way station, a resting spot of sorts for those warriors strong enough to make it this far down Snake Way. They have plenty of food and drink, but depending on how long the two Earthmen plan to spend their respite, there's no reason the rest can't include a little reward. Goku's naive enough to simply take the good meal and warm bath at face value. He's not truly tempted by Princess Snake's advances. Krillin, however, is very tempted by the illusions and allure of the otherworldly women. By dinner time, the short turtle fighter is positively smitten with one of the attendants. Princess Snake positions Krillin before her magic mirror, ready to seal the deal when the mirror reveals Krillin's dream of living out his sinful fantasies with these girls. However, even in the mirror's reflection, Krillin's hedonism only reaches the realms of being alive again, taking the snakely-shaped attendant out for a nice date, and maybe holding hands at the dinner table? What was this infatuation? Princess Snake scoffs at Krillin's lack of true temptation. What is this guy, a monk? When the warriors finish their meal and make their goodbyes, still dedicated to their mission to continue down Snake Way and to their loved ones in the living realm, Princess Snake reveals her true form and attempts to retain and devour the two. The two escape, and Krillin apologizes to Goku for misjudging the princess. The Saiyan shrugs it off. He wasn't even looking at the princess in that way because he has Chi-Chi, but Goku knows Krillin wants someone in his life, so why wouldn't he be looking? The two make their way down more of Snake Way for what feels like months, definitely many miles, and eventually find the need to take another rest. They come across a street cleaning vehicle, and both fall asleep on the back. A bit further down their journey, when Goku gets bucked off the truck bed, the heel of his boot smacks Krillin in the head, waking him up just in time to see Goku bounce off the path and fall to hell. Krillin leaps after him, trying to grab him, but the vehicle driver catches Krillin by the collar and stops him from going below the line of the clouds. What the heck was that boy thinking, trying to get himself stuck in hell? Krillin's devastated, not only because he's lost his best friend to the depths of hell, but because without Goku training with King Kai, Krillin is their best shot against the Saiyans. Goku was the one chosen to learn from the deities. Krillin was just his +1. Flashback. Demons in a jar. At Korin's tower, Goku, Tien, and Krillin have all passed out fighting the poisonous effects of the ultra-divine water in an effort to come out stronger than King Piccolo. While Goku woke from the poisonous personal ordeal, and Tien was spared the worst of the poison by his friend Chiaotzu pulling him out, Krillin remains unconscious. Following the defeat of Piccolo and Goku's journey up to God's Lookout, he finds the Guardian of Earth isn't what he expected. When Kami tells Goku he'll only restore Shenron on the condition that Goku remain there and train, Goku refuses and says he's not doing anything for anyone until somebody helps Krillin. Kami assures Goku that Shenron can revive Krillin just like the rest, but Goku informs him that Krillin isn't dead yet, but he could die at any second. After he learns of the ultra-divine water in Krillin's state, Kami instructs Popo to accompany Goku to Korin's and begin the boys' training with techniques for the focusing of the mind. Goku will be the one to connect with Krillin's spirit and help bring him back from the brink of death. Goku is angry that Kami is testing him so cruelly. Why is Kami playing games with Krillin's life? They're leaving him to suffer. He begs the god to heal Krillin himself, and Goku can study the technique and learn it after. Right now, just make sure Krillin is okay. Kami insists that as the Guardian, his responsibility is to the planet and preparing to end the threat of Piccolo Jr. Your friend Krillin has no attachments to me, is all the Guardian will say. Goku will be his own friend savior, Kami asserts. Studying with Popo at Korin's, Goku develops mild awareness of his spirit, and begins to display some of the mind-reading powers he occasionally employs. Goku locks onto Krillin's faint spirit. He enters Krillin's mind and finds Krillin being berated by apparitions of his bullies from the temple. Roshi calling him a cheat during their training, and later Jackie Chun calling him and Tien fools for rushing to fight Piccolo's forces. Shifting shadows and surreal reality keeps Goku from reaching Krillin as he witnesses the various abuses play out. He witnesses Krillin's memories from the tournament until he reached Korin's. When Goku finally reaches Krillin and touches him, and comes upon a scene of Krillin and himself from their training time standing in the ocean outside of Kami House. Goku remembers this fight. However, as the memory continues to play on in this space, the false Goku becomes crueler and more savage, besting Krillin with his superior strength. The copy taunts that it didn't even take his full power, but still, he'll show Krillin just how small he is before finishing him. Goku still can't overcome the ocean waves that continue to pound him back just beyond the border of Krillin's showdown with his doppelganger. The sun sets over the water, and Krillin falls before his attacker, knees and hands buried in the shoreline. Goku sees his evil duplicate charging up a Kamehameha wave in his hands. The real Goku quickly does the same, and uses his wave to propel himself at Krillin's would-be killer. Goku crashes through his shadow twin, and banishes the illusion in time to save Krillin. He lifts his cowering friend to his feet, and tells him repeatedly not to believe what any of those fakers were saying. He tells Krillin that he has to snap out of it and wake up from this dreamland. None of this is real. They're not even at Kame House. Goku looks around and he sees the Kame House is gone, and there's a light reflected in the water. Goku looks up to see a full moon. He begins transforming in Krillin's mind, and in real life at the tower. Korin panics and tosses Goku over the edge before his growing form destroys the tower with his weight alone. As Popo hurries to alert Kami and deal with the transforming Goku, Korin looks over the edge and at the unconscious Krillin. Yajirobe asks aloud what the heck is in that water. Kami and Popo rush by on the flying carpet, and Kami uses the evil containment wave to trap Uzaru Goku, but not before the beast can snatch and shred the carpet holding them. The ritual is happening, and the beast is disappearing into the jar, but without the carpet, the jar, Kami, and Popo all plunge. Korin does some acrobatics, thrusting out his cane and dangling from his tower's rail by only his tail. His cane hooks the jar, holding it steady as it swallows the angry ape's swirling aura. Kami falls onto the jar, clamping the lid shut with his whole body, and holds on. The Guardian sees Popo fall past him, and uses his eye-beams to create a blast just beneath Popo that buoys the genie enough for him to grab onto the base of Korin's tower. Yajirobe then pulls the group in, as Korin snaps at the samurai not to pull his tail so hard. Kami, out of breath and clutching a jar as he and Popo rise past the tower, Korin asks if he gave the bell to the wrong person. Goku seemed worthy, even more pure than his old pervert master, but for the boy to be hiding this much of a beast beneath the surface? The cat isn't sure what to make of that. Kami notices that Krillin is stirring. He's successfully beaten the poison, and says that Goku did well to rescue his friend. But just as he was when he sought the previous Guardian ages ago, this young man has much evil inside of him. He informs Korin that he chose correctly, and that he and Popo will make it so the beast cannot return. The jar wobbles in Kami's grip, and he bids Korin farewell, saying they best get a move on. They don't want their furry friend coming back just yet. Korin wonders if suppressing the raging ape is the wisest course, but Kami is confident he can separate the young man from the monkey. He and Popo use the power pole and ascend past the clouds, moments before Krillin fully wakes. When he learns how he came to and what's transpired, Krillin marvels at how far his friend Goku has come. Korin steers the ball boy in from the edge of the tower, offers him a senzu bean, and some advice that Krillin take care of himself for now, and don't get fixated on Goku. I don't think your spiky-haired friend is coming back anytime soon, so you best get a move on living your own life, kid. Back on Snake Way, the vehicle driver pulls Krillin away from the edge and encourages him to get a move on. I don't think your spiky-haired friend is coming back. Krillin has no choice, and does just that. By the time he arrives on King Kai's planet, weeks of isolation and guilt over Goku's fate have Krillin feeling lower than low, and the gravity on King Kai's planet obliges his low opinion of himself, nailing his chin to the pavement.